Hey, how's it going, do-it-yourselfers? Today we're going to go over some of the things that you can do that will help you save money at the gas pump. It goes without saying, the bigger your car, whether an SUV or a truck, the more important the things that we're going to talk about today. Alright, so if you really want to get down and nerdy and scientific about this stuff, there's a funny looking guy with a funny haircut that did a video on how to diagnose a failed emissions test about 5 years ago that you can look up. I'll put a link to that at the end of this video or in the description box if you want to look into that video and see how he went about diagnosing high levels of hydrocarbons, which are basically gas, high levels of carbon monoxide, which is partially burnt gas, etc. But for the sake of this video, we'll keep it simple. In fact, I'll divide it into three main areas. First, we'll go over the parts of your car's engine that you should keep an eye on or replace in order to improve your MPG. Second, the other components of your car, and the third area that you can improve upon will of course be some of your driving habits. Alright, so to set the tone on this video, I'm going to explain things this way. Basically, when you're trying to save money at the gas pump, you're trying to burn the hydrocarbons, or in other words, the gasoline that is in your gas tank as efficiently as possible. Now, you might think if your car doesn't have a check engine light that it's working fine and the engine is working fine. That's the case in a lot of cases, but working fine is a relative term because if you've ever taken an emissions test, you're going to see a hydrocarbon reading that is coming out of your exhaust pipe. Next to that, you're going to see an average reading for your car, and then also you're going to see a maximum allowed reading for hydrocarbons. Now that right there shows you that there's a lot of wiggle room there. Your car may not be working as efficient as it could be and still pass smog or emissions, but yet you're going to suffer on MPG. You're not going to burn the hydrocarbons as efficiently as you could be. Alright, so first up, you might want to look into replacing your spark plugs and spark plug wires. Because your spark plug, like the name suggests, is responsible for igniting the air-fuel mixture. If you're not getting a good enough ignition or spark at your spark plugs, you're not going to ignite the entire air-fuel mixture. Your car's not going to burn all those lovely, expensive hydrocarbons that are getting into the combustion chamber, and therefore you're going to waste a lot of them at the tailpipe. So you might want to look into your car's owner's manual, find the mileage interval that your spark plugs and spark plug wires have to be replaced, and make sure they're replaced at the right time, or even if a little bit earlier, you're going to make up for that little bit of a difference in the money you're going to pay sooner. Let's say 5,000 miles at the gas pump, no problem at all. And yes, your spark plug wires have to be replaced too. Your spark plug wires have to maintain a certain resistance to the flow of the voltage that's going through them to create that spark at your spark plug. If that resistance changes over time due to them simply getting worn out, you're not going to have an efficient or a good enough spark at the end of your spark plugs. You're not going to burn that hydrocarbons as good as you should be, and therefore your gas mileage is going to suffer. All right, next up, your pre-cat or upstream oxygen sensor. All right, so basically your pre-cat or your upstream oxygen sensor on most cars is the oxygen sensor that's responsible for telling your car's computer how much hydrocarbons or gasoline it needs to add into the combustion chamber. If it senses too much oxygen in your exhaust fumes, it adds hydrocarbons. If it senses too little oxygen in your exhaust fumes, it decreases hydrocarbons. What happens with oxygen sensors over time is that they wear out again, and they get, for lack of a better term, tired. They're not as quickly sending the signals as far as how much oxygen it is in your exhaust fumes to the computer. They might lag a little bit behind. They might be a little slower to react to the difference in oxygen levels in the exhaust fumes, and therefore your car's computer is not going to have the best or the most accurate data from your exhaust fumes. It's going to be a little bit confused, a little bit behind, and therefore your gas mileage can suffer this way. But these things usually last 100,000 miles, no problem. However, if you got a car that's 120,000 miles and you know for a fact that the oxygen sensor is still the stock oxygen sensor, and you're wondering why your gas mileage has gone up, this might be something that you might want to look into. All right, so next up, if your car comes with a mass airflow sensor, you might want to look into cleaning it. However, you want to be very careful if you haven't done this before. There are videos on how to clean a mass airflow sensor on YouTube. I have one, you can look it up and follow those instructions. But your mass airflow sensor, like the name would suggest, tells your car's computer how much air is entering your engine. Your car's computer adjusts your fuel injectors and sprays the right amount of air. Whereas your oxygen sensor was telling your car's computer how much oxygen is exiting or is going out the tailpipe through your exhaust fumes coming out of the engine. Mass airflow sensor tells your car's computer how much air is going into the engine. Compared to your spark plugs, the spark plug wires, and your upstream oxygen sensor, your mass airflow sensor, generally speaking, it's not going to make a huge difference if you clean it as far as gas mileage goes. But if you're in there replacing things, fixing stuff, you got the mass airflow sensor there, right there, you got the right cleaning product, go ahead and clean it. All right, so next up, which is a very common thing that people suggest in order to improve gas mileage, is going to be replacing your air filter. Now, here's the funny thing. Again, everybody mentions you should replace your air filter to improve your gas mileage, but on most newer cars, modern cars, replacing your air filter, even if it's dirty a little bit, where it's restricting the flow of air, we're not talking about a completely clogged air filter. We're talking about an air filter that's dirty. It's not going to affect your gas mileage that much. It's going to be a negligible amount. What's going to affect is your acceleration and power. Remember these guys? They'll tell your car's computer there isn't enough oxygen in your exhaust fumes, and your car's computer will decrease the amount of hydrocarbons that are going through your engine. However, when you don't have enough hydrocarbons and oxygen entering your engine relative to the load that's on your engine, your acceleration and power are going to decrease. But again, these air filters are so cheap and so easy to replace, you don't even have to pay for labor in order to get these replaced. So even if they make a negligible amount of difference in your gas mileage, I would go ahead and replace them. All right, up next, if your car's engine has a timing belt, you want to make sure you replace that on time or even sooner a little bit, because if you have a worn and loose timing belt, your car's computer can adjust the ignition timing to compensate for that, but it's going to be doing it constantly. As you slow down, as the RPM goes up and down, it's going to have to adjust the ignition timing. Your car's not going to run as efficiently as it should. You're going to burn more gas, and you are going to notice a decrease in power when you have a worn timing belts. A lot of people are gonna have to relate to this. When they replace their timing belt, they notice a big difference as far as power and acceleration goes. That's simply because that tight timing belt is allowing for your car's computer to run that ignition timing as best as possible. And when it's loose, obviously it constantly has to adjust it. You lose power and gas mileage when it has to do that. Oh, and not to mention, of course, if your engine is an interference engine, if you don't replace the timing belt on time, timing belt breaks, your valves will hit your pistons and you're going to be out an engine. So that's all the more reason you should replace your timing belt on time. Now, before we go any further, there's no doubt in my mind that you're going to enjoy this video, but I really doubt you're going to remember to hit that subscribe button and bell notification to be notified of more fantastic videos that will be coming out. So go ahead and take this opportunity to do that. All right, so those are the main things in your engine that you can replace or maintain in order to have the best gas mileage. Now let's move on to other parts of your car, which is pretty much going to be your wheels and tires. And it kind of makes sense. Your entire car is riding on your four wheels, so they have to be working properly. And in order for them to be working properly, it's kind of simple. You want to make sure that your tires have the right pressure. If they're under pressure and deflated, they're going to have increased drag, which means there's going to be an increased load on your engine. The more load on your engine than necessary, the more hydrocarbons is going to have to be pushed into the combustion chamber to go the same distance. And of course, that means you're going to be spending more money at the gas pump. And also, you want to make sure you have even wear on your tires, because if you have uneven wear, that means you probably have an alignment issue. And if you have an alignment issue and your car is out of alignment, that's going to increase drag, again, increasing the amount of money you need to spend at the gas pump. Now, here's something else that doesn't happen often, but it does happen from time to time, and that is sticking brake calipers. Now, we're not talking about a caliper that's locked in place and seized. We're talking about a caliper that's maybe the lubrication on the sliding pins is worn out. It's not moving back and forth. It's as like the way it should be, and therefore the brake pads are sticking to your rotors a little bit. That little bit of drag, if it's constant, it can go a long way in decreasing your MPG. And the way you can find out whether you have sticking calipers is to use an infrared thermometer. And after you go for a drive, you go and take a temperature on the right side compared to the temperature on the left side. If there's more than, let's say, 25-30% difference as far as the temperature goes, that means the side that's hotter could have a potential brake caliper that's maybe sticking a little bit, and you want to open that up and look into it and fix and replace that. All right, so up next we're going to talk about something that's usually overlooked, and that is your driving habits. So as some of you might guess, flooring the gas pedal is probably the most inefficient way to get going from a dead stop. What happens is your MAF sensor, mass airflow sensor that we talked about, along with other sensors, tell your car's computer there's a whole lot of air getting into this engine, and there's a load on this dead weight that needs to get going down the road as fast as possible. Your car's computer opens the fuel injectors, pumps in a lot of gas. Most of that gets, ignited and used. However, a lot of it also goes to waste at your tailpipe. More of that goes to waste, the higher your gas bill. Now, another driving habit that's just as bad is when you accelerate and decelerate or brake right after each other. This happens a lot when people don't time or don't pay attention to driving. They miss, they don't time the stop signs, the corners, the turns, the stoplights. They accelerate from one. Doesn't have to be, doesn't necessarily mean you're flooring it from one point to the next point, but you accelerate faster than, let's say, normal. You accelerate, then you decelerate. You accelerate, decelerate. When you do this often, you're wasting a lot of gas. You're wasting that extra gas you use from accelerating from a, let's say, dead stop or going 5 miles an hour to 25 miles an hour by decelerating. Because when you get going, you spend a lot of gas when you get going from a dead stop or when you're going slow, but you save a lot of energy when you get to cruising speeds. But yeah, make sure you're paying attention to the road. You time, the stop signs, the stop lights. You're paying attention to where you need to turn, so you don't accelerate and decelerate often. And in fact, I'm gonna bet a lot of people are gonna relate. Riding shotgun to one of these drivers is probably one of the most annoying driving experiences on the planet. All right, here's something else that might surprise some people, and that is your cruising speed should be under 60 miles per hour. Now, most people think that cruising on the highway at 70, 75 miles an hour is when your car is the most efficient. However, at those speeds, most cars encounter too much wind resistance. They just puts a load on the engine, you're pumping too much gas in there, you're not running as efficient. However, on most cars, actually the most efficient cruising speed is going to be below that, at 60 or 50 miles per hour. And Beavis and Butthead are out, destroying the English Ivy. Especially Butthead. He loses his mind when he smells a squirrel or a rat. Yep, full on psycho. And last but not least, whether you should turn off your AC and roll down your window, or if it's more efficient if you roll up your window and turn on your AC at highways. Now, this is going to be closer than people imagine as far as gas mileage goes, but as far as comfort goes, it's a no-brainer. Roll up your window and turn on the AC. Now, your AC does use a lot of gas, even at highway speeds, but if you're rolling down your window, that increases the drag by a whole lot and puts a lot of load on your engine as well. So, for comfort reasons alone, the difference is negligible. Whether it's, improving or decreasing your gas mileage by a tiny amount, go ahead and turn on your AC. All right, looks like I'm gonna go have to walk the dogs. Lucky enough, we're at the end of this video. But make sure you subscribe and hit the bell notification, leave a comment, and also if you want to help my channel, check out my other videos. I put links to them on this side of the screen, links down below in the description box as well. All right, thanks for watching. I'll see you guys next time.